Good morning and welcome back. This is World Talks coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Saria Strzemska. 82 years ago today, the Warsaw Uprising began. The fight to liberate Warsaw from Nazi German occupation claimed around 200,000 lives and left Warsaw almost completely destroyed. Yet despite its tragic outcome, the uprising remains one of the defining moments in Poland's history. To discuss its legacy and its relevance today, I am joined by Alina Nowobilska, historian, host of the Moment in Time World War II edition podcast. Hello and welcome, Alina. Delighted to have you with us.
Thank you so much. This is my favourite anniversary. I mean, minding obviously the amount of victims, the heroism for me that I love to be able to talk about. So thank you for inviting me.
So for our viewers outside of Poland who may not be familiar with its history, why is the Warsaw Uprising remembered as one of the defining moments of World War II?
63 days, I think I should just leave it there. 63 days of heroic fighting. I mean, these people underwent horrendous conditions, continuous bombings, threats of being massacred left, right and centre. I think nobody really saw what was to happen. They didn't expect it to be 63 days, but it ended up being such a long time of... It is heroism. I mean, these people fought for their freedom. They wanted that moment to... I mean, my grandfather himself writes in his memoirs to say that he wanted to pay back for all the pain and the suffering and everything they underwent through for 5 years of occupation. So at the end of the day, it is this moment that I don't even know how to explain it anymore. There's just so many emotions running through me right now to try and be able to explain in one sentence. It was a heroic moment that we should all remember, and most of the Western world don't remember this or don't even realise it happened because they don't focus on the East, what we call the Eastern Central part of Europe. So,
and could we give our viewers a gist of what unfolded back in 1944?
So, gosh, in a couple of sentences, my gosh. Okay, so basically, the Red Army is approaching Warsaw. The insurgents realised that if they don't rise up because of what was already happening in places like Wilno, modern-day Vilnius, Lwów, modern-day Lviv, in places like that where the Red Army was taking over and arresting people, you know, Home Army members, they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to have control of their city, and also part of them wanted to pay back the Germans for what they did. So they rose up and, like I said, 63 days of fighting that should have been only a couple of days.
So how did it become such a powerful symbol of resistance?
Oh my gosh, that's a really difficult question. How did it become such a... I think in the end, let's say this, okay, so post-war, we didn't get a chance to remember it, in Poland anyway. Outside of Poland, we did. We got to commemorate, we still had that 2 minutes of silence at 5 p.m. And finally, when Poland could celebrate in the late 80s, especially in the early 90s, I was here in 1994 as a young girl, remembering those moments. We got a chance to commemorate the heroic victims. We didn't get a chance to talk about these people, what they did, how they died, because during communism, we weren't allowed to. It was just impossible. So in the end, I think being able to talk about it and being able to talk about the heroism, because so many people died. In the space of 63 days, we're talking between 150 to 180,000 people, most of them civilians as well. We forget that. A lot of people remember the uprising just because of the fighting. We don't remember also the civilians that fell, and they fell in some, and were murdered in some of those horrific ways possible. That, I mean, it's too early in the morning to start talking about those sorts of things, but it was, yeah, I think that's what it is. It's that chance to be able to talk about it finally after, gosh, my mind is not working, 40 odd years or so.
So a poll conducted last year has found that more than 51% of Poles now believe that Warsaw Uprising was necessary and should have taken place, up from 35% in 2018. So that's a remarkable shift in just a few years. So what do you think is driving this?
I would say probably the war with Ukraine. Might be. Also, we're talking about it a lot more on social media. It's being pushed. It's being pushed. We're talking about today, of course. And I pushed a podcast as well for the Western media in English, and day by day to talk about the Warsaw Uprising. I think that heroism of the Ukrainians and what's happening over there kind of drove that forward a little bit. That's my own personal opinion. You know, you might not agree with me, but I think that might have been that kind of final push. But also, we're stopping looking from the modern perspective. That, for me, is a really big issue, is that we're looking at the Warsaw Uprising from today. We know what happens. We know exactly what happens. But on that day, at say 5 p.m. today, did they really know that so many people were going to die? No. Do you think they would have gone through with it? Probably not. But it did happen, and it was necessary for them. Not for us, for them.
You've mentioned Ukraine. Some people draw parallels to places like Mariupol. Do you think it's fair? Should this be happening?
They're completely different circumstances. Of course, you know, Russia invading Ukraine, Germany and Poland. At the end of the day, Warsaw was told, well, Himmler gave that order on the 1st of August to say Warsaw is to be razed to the ground, and every man, woman and child is to be killed because of how dare those dirty Poles rise up. Is it the same? No, it's not. They're two separate incidences, but you can compare the damage and the destruction because you can see Mariupol, you can see how heavily devastated the inhabitants are and the buildings are. There, yeah, you could probably compare that to that. But historically and the events, two completely different things. And Mariupol is going to have to rebuild, just like Warsaw.
Right, by all means. And now, some critics argue that the memory of the uprising is being used in political debates. What's your take on this?
It is, and it's really funny because I sit on social media a lot, and you can see these statistics change of how many people died. So some people say at the lower end, which is why I give this wide range of people, because we're still not sure 100% how many people died. So sometimes politically in social media, people will use, I've even seen 300,000 people have died, 250,000. I find that a little bit disrespectful in a way, because you're kind of expanding this number that shouldn't be expanded. Let's focus on the victims that actually died, not start making things up and adding statistics. I really don't think the uprising should be political. End of. I don't think history should be political, but at the end of the day, it's gonna go that way, and I can't control that.
All right. There's also a powerful cultural component, this cultural layer to the uprising, with songs that were sung by the insurgents, poetry, other forms of expression. Can you tell us more about this?
Oh my gosh! So I was a scout back in the day, so of course a lot of those songs I know because what we sung. We sat around the campfire and we sang those songs. So that's really heavily instilled. Even though I didn't grow up in Poland, I grew up in England. So it's still kind of, it's really pushed in culturally, not just historically. And we talk about it then, what are the songs about? Oh, it's to do with the uprising, and we start to learn a little bit more. And some of these songs were created, I guess is the right, were written before the uprising and were sung during the uprising. Some of them were written actually during the uprising and then sang. And I love it. And I love that today we're going to have this amazing concert where, you know, Warsaw sings for free, like for freedom, because we weren't allowed to sing those songs in the 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We could in the West, but we couldn't here. And it's beautiful that all of this poetry has survived, like Kamil Baczyński's poetry has survived. That's amazing. It was kept and then republished, and it's keeping not just the historical side, but the cultural side. Like you said, the cultural side alive. I think it's so beautiful that we're being able to still use those words today.
And speaking of commemorations taking place today, do you have any plans?
Oh gosh, yes, a lot. So my grandfather fought in the uprising, so he fought in the Powiśle district. So after this, I have to go to church. So every year I go to church at 9 p.m. and then at 12 o'clock we go and commemorate the battles for the University of Warsaw, which is going to be interesting because there was 3 battles for the University of Warsaw, all of which failed, all of which, unfortunately, a few hundred people did die during those battles. They were just unsuccessful. And then I'm tour guiding around Warsaw in this heat, which is going to be interesting. And then I'm taking my tour to the old town to experience 5 p.m, the 2 minutes of silence. So, and then, of course, the concert, because who else is not going to go to the concert in Warsaw? If you're here, go to that concert. It's great.
Alina, you're a historian, but you're also a storyteller. So,
God, yeah.
Is there a story from the Warsaw Uprising that is particularly close to your heart?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to tell that first moment, because I was actually telling the ladies behind the scenes about it in Polish, so now I'm going to switch it to English. So like I said, my grandfather fought. He was in Kiev, so the kind of underground resistance, I call them the badasses, really, when I tour guide and I talk to people. And in his first moments, he was called up with his best friend and another guy, and they used a Bren gun. So those people that don't know, Bren gun is massive. It is a really big gun. It usually takes 2 people to operate. And he's sitting, waiting for these Germans out of a window, and he's leaning against the back of his friend because they need that kind of structure to be able to hold this gun, to be able to fire it. And for me, I think that kind of intimate moment between 2 friends, especially when that friend dies 30 days later, is he gets shot by a sniper. But that's a very intimate moment for him. My grandfather relived that, I think, till the day he died, that his friend, his best friend, they fought during the occupation. They did everything together. But coming back to the story, he is sitting, leaning against his friend's knees, and he's waiting. And the moment comes, the Germans appear. And it's really difficult to translate this into English, but they say his codename is Złamić wal. In English, it's like shoot. It's not as expressive. In Polish, it's a much more expressive word. Złamić wal. And he starts shooting, and he gets so excited, he shoots too many shots. They're like, stop, you're wasting ammo. They don't have enough ammo, stop. And then he says in his memoirs, he's like, do you know what? That was the moment that I could pay them back for absolutely everything. All the pain, all the suffering, and I felt like a real, true soldier. I love that. For me, that is a very powerful moment, especially for my grandfather. So to this day, I will tell everybody and anyone that story. I mean, there's a million others to talk about, but I think that was the most important for today.
And how old was your grandfather at the time? Because a lot of young people took part in the uprising. I think it's important to stress that as well.
Yeah, he was 20 years old, so in that category, I mean, you even have 13 and 14, 11-year-olds who are running around and, helping and nursing. I mean, the amount of young people that took part, and they had that choice. That's what I need to underline. They had a choice to fight. They weren't forced to, which is what some narratives say. How dare they force children? These children had a choice. And I know it's a difficult choice, but they still underwent this occupation. They still experienced all the pain and the suffering that their family members, they themselves. So, yeah, I just wanted to stress that a little bit there.
And so let's end with this moving story. Alina Nowobilska, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned for more here on TV.